So first thing is I want to cut the tenon. I like to cut the tenons before the mortises. Some people like to do it otherwise, but that's me. I have a tenon already on this end, and that's basically what it's going to end up looking like. And I have a mark specifically from here to here where the tenon's shoulder needs to be. So let's finish that mark and mark out where it needs to be. So I'm going to put my knife into that mark, and then I'm going to slide the square up against it. This lets me know that the square is going to be exactly where it needs to be. This particular face is my reference face. That's the one I put the tape on. And I'm going to do it light, medium, and then hard pass. Gives me a nice deep scar. And then if this is my reference face, this then is my reference edge. So I'm going to keep the square referenced off the reference face. Put the knife in the mark, light, medium, hard, and then I'll roll it over. I'll keep the square on the reference edge. Knife in the mark, slide the square up, light, medium, hard. Then I'll roll it over, and I don't want to reference it off of this side because that's not my reference face. I want to reference off of this side. That's my reference surface. Put the knife into the mark, slide the square up against it, light, medium, hard. Now I have a nice hard edge all the way around this surface. Now I need to mark out the thickness of the tenon, and I'm actually going to use a mortising marker. I'm actually going to be using a mortising gauge. This has two different cutters on it at different distances in and out, so that I can mark both sides of the tenon at the same time. And one thing I want to be careful of is always to keep the marking gauge referenced against the reference side. I don't want to ever put it on the side without the tape. This way I know that all of my tenon marks on all of my pieces are the same distance off of the reference side. So if there's any variation in the thickness of the piece, or any movement, I know that everything is going to be exactly where it needs to be. So I'm going to start by marking out one side of the tenon, the other side of the tenon. I don't like to make both marks at the same time. It's just a personal preference. I find it to be a little distracting. And then we want to do end grain, one side, the other side. And then back over, keeping it referenced off the face, one side, the other side. So there I have marks running all the way around the tenon, ready to be cut off and shaped. Let's do some more. Now next up, I like to cut the shoulders before cutting the cheeks. I just find it is the easier cut to do, and I prefer to do the easier cut first so that the second cut then falls off. I'll use a cross-cut saw, just a small one I have, and I don't like to use the slot as much as put the plate up against the inside here. And I will start just by nicking the outside, keeping the weight off of the board, putting it close to the line, but about a 64th away, and then I'll bring the saw back along that line until I have developed a nice clean kerf all the way across, about a 64th away from the line. And then I will do usually about that many passes. Put a hair deep there, right on there. Flip it over. Right on. A little bit more here. Right on. There you go. There's the shoulders. So let's cut the cheeks. Now for cutting out the tenon, I have a tenon saw here, and it is a rip cut because I'm going to be cutting with the grain on the way down it. And I'm going to be following these lines. Now I need to make sure I stay on the correct side of the line. And so to do that, I'm actually going to pinch the corner of the wood, and that gives me a spot to slide the saw up against my thumbnail. So I can pinch the wood, and I'm going to start the cut on the push. Just like that. Now, sometimes you might find it kind of catches and you can't push forward. That's often because you're starting to lift the heel of the saw up and you need to put the heel back down. And try and keep the saw somewhat parallel with your cut. Once I get into it, I'm going to go down about a 1/4 inch and I'm going to see the mark on my side, and then I'm going to look over on the other side and make sure that I'm still where I want to be there. And I am, and after that point it should pretty much track itself down if the saw is any decent. There we go. That one popped off a little bit early. Okay, a lot bit early. The other side, it's the same thing, just have to be a little more careful because there's less to work with. And you're left with a square for your tenon cheek. Okay, so now we need to clean up the surface of the cheek and also the shoulder. And there are many different ways that you can do this. I chose this particular one because it has a lot of material I still have to take off to get down to the marking gauge line on this. And the most common way is to use a shoulder plane, which I made this one a while ago. And this allows you to get right up tight into that corner and take it out right down to the edge. And that's really useful, very quick, very easy, but not everyone has a shoulder plane. So some of the other options you could possibly use is a router. This allows you to reference off of this face and clean up the surface. But again, not everyone has a router, though it is very useful. So I want to show you a very simple method that anyone can do with a chisel and a regular hand plane. And it's fairly quick, fairly easy, and very accurate. I'll start by actually taking the chisel and cleaning up this surface all the way down to that marking gauge line. And on this one I've got quite a bit to go. I got to take off almost an 1/8 inch because my saw did not get anywhere near that line. So let me just clean this off quickly. Almost. And I'm just taking it down to the marking gauge line for about a 1/4 inch away from the shoulder, so that I can come in with a regular plane and still have space to get the blade into that corner. And then I'll use that to go across the grain. I'll tighten that up first. And that will allow me to work down to that line. So what I'm actually doing is swirling it. So I'm going forward halfway into it, and then I'm sliding it out the end of the tenon. If I go all the way through the other side, I'm going to end up blowing out this edge. So once I can come on from a little bit of that side, I'll come in from this side. Oop, a little more. I really did go wild on this one. And let me just finish off this side. Regularly checking that marking gauge line just to make sure that I'm getting to where I want to be. And I just want to clean this up a little bit. I'm a little bit bellied here in the middle. There, left with a nice clean tenon. Let's flip it over and do the other side. So for cleaning up the shoulder, I'm just using this small chisel. This is actually an 8mm chisel. Whatever you've got, You can do it with bigger, but I like a little one. And I'm going to put that blade right into the marking gauge line, and I'm going to undercut it just a little bit. So I'm going to actually angle down so that the highest point is the very edge of that shoulder, because the shoulder is the only thing that is seen. And then once I get this edge referenced, and this is exactly where it needs to be, I'm going to set the corner of the chisel on there and then rock the other side into that marking gauge line, still undercutting a little bit, sliding it back in. The clamp isn't as tight as it should be. And you do want to be careful here, because you have a tendency when you're paring to slide the blade back and slice forward into your finger. I've done that a few times, and a shoulder or two later I suddenly realized that all my work is bloody, and these chisels are sharp. Well, if you sharpen them correctly. And we'll just continue all the way across. And I'll stop just short of the end, and then come in and just clean it up. And there you go. Nice clean shoulder and cheek, ready to be used. There's a quick look at how I like to make a tenon. This is really kind of the basic of joinery. Once you can make a tenon, you can put it into all sorts of other things. Next week I'm going to show how to make a bridle joint so that you can then use the tenon in a half of a mortise. Or hopefully I'm going to have a video coming out on how to make a mortise and tenon. And tenons can take all sorts of other shapes to go into other slots and other mortises. And once you figure out how to make this accurately, you can make a lot of other joints very accurately as well. So I hope you like this. It was really kind of a fun video. I'm trying to put out a few more how-to videos like this. If there's something particular you would like to see, let me know in the comments. Or if there is some comment you have about how I did it, something I could have done better, I'd love to hear about that. Please let me know in the comments below. If you like the video, please hit like, think about subscribing, and also check out one of my other videos. You might find something there you like. And until next time, have a wonderful day.